Hi, good evening. Um, Tonight we have a conversation with Sonja Kristina, who a kind of mythic, glamorous feature in the music industry from, gosh, way back. She was a star in the musical Hair, and she was a kind of star in the whole counterculture movement back then. Um, Fantastic voice. And she joined Curved Air, which I think was a wonderful mix. They had a very unusual sound with the violin and Stuart Copeland on drums, and she fitted right in. It was a perfect match. Unfortunately, the first incarnation of Curved Air didn't last a very long time, but it has reformed and reformed. A very beautiful lady and very positive in her outlook on life.
It was funny actually because I was getting into the mood of Curved Air and what Sonja did. So I went on YouTube to particularly look up the song that she talks about in your discussion called Backstreet Love. And I thought I'd look at the comments because I always find it really interesting and telling of people's fandom. And every single comment was about how beautiful she was. And I was sort of looking for comments about the music or like, and I think there's one which is like, how can they call what people make now music? Every other comment was about how incredible and beautiful and, you know, amazing she was to look at particularly. But so that was nice.
Well, the track that really got my attention could have made me sit up and think, wow, this is an incredible sound, was It Happened Today. That was the title of the track, It Happened Today. Yeah, it's fantastic music.
I really liked as well listening to Sonja talk about that time, the swinging 60s in London.
Yes.
I felt like the way that she talked about it was the first time I'd really, and I know it's a sort of very mythologized and romanticized period in, you know, time and history. But for me, there'd always been sort of difficult vibes about it, and the way that she put it made it sound like it would have been somewhere incredibly exciting to be. I'd always felt a little bit like I would have been quite out of place there because I like regular meal times and clean sheets in my own bed. And I feel like people would have thought I was a bit of a downer. But the way that she described it, I don't think I'd have cared that much. It sounded really amazing. Is that how you felt about it as well?
I wasn't in the heart of it in the same way she was, but I did have a very successful exhibition in 1966 with the Sea Urchin Chair. So a lot of people thought I was in it, but I was at the Royal College, which was kind of on the edge. It was like an alternative venue to Middle Earth in a way. Lots of fantastic bands played there. Yeah, it was, for me, it was fantastic because England was just coming out of that post-war bleak, grey world. And that was my first reaction from coming back from Hong Kong. We came back from Hong Kong in the summer of 1957. And yeah, Cliff Richard had Living Doll in the hit parade for like 13 weeks. And I was thinking, this isn't rock and roll. What's going on here? And England did seem surprisingly bleak. And yes, this was a needed revolution.
I mean, that was the other thing that I was thinking as well. I was thinking about it today. I was thinking, oh, I would have loved to have been her friend at that time and been that age at that time. Oh, I bet she would have thought I was a total bore though. And then I was sort of thinking, although I probably wouldn't have handled that way of life very well, you know, all of the sort of kind of, I don't know, freewheeling drugs and free love stuff, I think I would have found quite stressful. But, but what I was saying, oh, what was I going to say?
Well, I think you'd have found what came before, the sort of very struggling greyness, much worse.
From listening to your conversation, that was the sort of impression that I got, was that it was something that had to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's like any aspect of a human being or a group of people that get suppressed, you have to kind of explode out of it. And
yes.
you know, obviously, like in your conversation, you talk a little bit about the people who kind of suffered from that extremity of experience. But yeah, I got a strong impression that it was something that needed to happen.
Yes. And being in that small area of London where it was happening was quite exciting. It was, yeah. And she was the star of that, one of the stars in that movement.
Oh my God, read the YouTube comments. I think someone put, thank God technology exists to immortalize this woman. That is the loveliest comment I think I've ever read on YouTube. Yeah. And I really, really enjoyed this talk as well. I thought it was wonderful.
She was, yes. Should we say, please meet Sonja? Thank you, Sonja. Thank you, all of you. Okay, so you were telling me about how you're going right now through the creative process.
Yeah.
Talking about songs and sounds.
Yeah, we have to write a new album for the new year to promote lots and lots of concerts everywhere. After the pandemic, also pandemic, and so the way that we did the last one, North Star, because there was only one original member and myself initially. When we actually got the songs together, but they're a brilliant bunch of players who'd been with me for several years, because we started in earnest again in 2008, and then so the band that we had together in 2013-14, you know, we put together their ideas and mixed and matched and brought and invented new bits, and they all came down and they stayed in my house in Clapham at the time, which I had called North Star, and for some reason, you know, North Star just seemed to be appropriate to me, because it kind of signals, you know, it's like the lodestar, isn't it? I think it's the same thing. That people use to find their direction. They look for the pole star, don't they?
It's
and
the
North,
star, yeah.
Which is the North Star, I think, isn't it?
Yes, it's the only star that's always in the same place. All the rest move around the sky.
So people are guided by it. So this was and you know, apart from the fact I just felt an attunement with this idea of North Star. And I lived in North Street in Clapham, and so I called my house North Star. And then we recorded in the studio in North Street. And when we just finished recording, there was a great big bus came past with North Star written on the side and stars all over it. I looked it up, and it's some sort of bus company. But it, you know, that to me was another sort of bit of synchronicity just coming past, you know, because we'd already decided to call the album North Star by then. And so we got all the bits together, and you know, it was really quite hard work, because people come up with ideas, because it's not coming from one place, it's coming from 5 different individuals, and me being 6. And so somebody gets an idea and then he tries to get somebody else in the band to play the feel that he hears with it, and then that feel is not in that person's kind of, you know, groove collection, you know, so that has to be there has to be compromise there somewhere, and which can be quite tough when when it just has to be a certain way, and the other people don't play that way, you know. And so, but we got a blend together of some really nice songs, and then I took bits of melody from what I heard on their kind of composition demo things of their basic ideas, and I thought I found some some nice tunes. I thought, well, it'd be good to take those, because they're not the sort of things that I would come up with myself, and so then I can fit words to those kind of tunes.
Right.
And so with early curved air, my job was mostly fitting words to tunes, and maybe there was a couple of lines at the beginning which the composer had put there, which indicated what it was about. It was a bit like, you know, when you're 6 or 7 and they give you a first line and they say, right, now finish the story, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was a bit like that kind of a couple of them were like that, and then some of them I did with the next albums. Obviously I came up with my own ones, but there's a real fine, it's a thing in itself, finding exactly the right word for the melody. So you may have an idea for the subject matter, like with the French Revolution. I kind of wanted, for Marie Antoinette, I wanted to write something about Marie Antoinette, who I was also obsessed by. And so, you know, I had written down all these ideas and things. And so, you know, to find the words that flowed naturally, because I also feel that lyrics need to flow as though you're talking them. And I adjust rhymes so that they're not usually kind of, or they don't have to be obvious rhymes, but they you know, they'd be something that just sounds similar, which works just as well. And then when you spend a long time kind of crafting this, and then when it's finished, it just sounds so simple. It sounds like it's been around forever. You know, it just says, well, how you know, how on earth did that take so much work? You know, because it's not having the idea or even getting the lines, it's just getting those ideas into that melody, which you know is obviously a kind of what's the word, osmosis? No, it's some sort of process where one thing blends into another. What would be a big crossword for that?
Oh gosh, you've gone.
Yeah, that was, I've got to plug myself in. That's right. It's just, I was telling me I had low power.
Right.
Okay, I'll plug myself in. Yeah, no, it's just, yeah, you have to find the right phrase for a melody, for a particular melody line, which isn't just like a. And when once Phil Lynott and I were hanging out at his place, and he had a whole filing cabinet full of lyrics, you know, and he said then, I remember it was quite memorable. He said that any air, any words will fit any air, because he called his tunes airs, you know. So or any lyrics will fit any airs. So in his mind, he could put his existing lyrics to any tune and make it work, you know. But that's not my experience, you know. It's been, well, but I suppose because I've been creating the words separately. But anyway, that's a whole process. So anyway, getting back to North
You described
Star.
something that was largely collaborative, though. But do you work alone as well?
Playing from Roger D.
Yes. Who's talking to you?
That's Alexa.
All right, that's Alexa. That's one
So
of the many robot. That's sort of the great grandmother of all the robot voices that we'll have.
that's right. I hope I've turned the volume down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So for North, yeah, it was a collaborative process. You mean with me and Daryl, or with the early Curved Air and the new members? That's definitely was collaboration.
right.
But it wasn't collaboration in that we didn't sit down together like, say, Daryl and I and Marie Antoinette. I worked alone on finding the right words, and then just gave it to him as a finished thing. So we didn't, he gave me the tune, and then I found the words, but we didn't work together on the tune and the words, which to me would be a kind of, hands-on collaboration.
I thought the pair of you kind of defined the Curved Air sound.
Well,
Your voice and the violin.
yeah, I suppose so. But also Francis with his manipulation of sounds, and he used to spend hours we used to share a flat, so he spent hours in his bedroom with his oscillator and his sound generator, and just working with creating new sounds, for his BCS3. So I think that was very much part of Curved Air's sound, and along with the rock element, because that was the West Coast rock in particular, and Jimi Hendrix on Francis's side. That they were the influences for the rock
Right.
things, but also classical music was in. It probably is all the time, but it was also in a very sort of minimal, bizarre kind of place. People just sitting, turning pages, places, musics with consisting of silence and things like that was happening at the time, and so anything went. But I think it's interesting that the different progressive rock bands, even though Francis and Daryl had heard Soft Machine and who would have been around, who was at the same time as King Crimson and Soft Machine. I think those were two that I sort of heard them mention back then. They had heard them, so they were contemporaries of ours, but very different.
But no one was called prog rock then, were they? I'd never heard the phrase until, many years after that.
What, progressive rock?
I thought of bands like Soft Machine as sort of psychedelic.
Yeah.
I remember them because I knew Robert Wyatt. He was a model at the Canterbury College of Art when I was a student there. And
right.
He had a band called the Wildflowers, which
Yeah.
spawned Caravan and Gong and all kinds of amazing stuff. But it became jazz band eventually, didn't it?
Well, yeah, experimental, I would say. Yes, drawing in different elements that wouldn't normally be in popular music. It was a time of crossing boundaries, as opposed to trading boundaries, and trading boundaries, I guess. But yeah, bringing Oriental, Asian vibe into the sort of the what had come out of the sort of jazz roots of the beginnings of rock and roll, and through everything else that came to that had made popular music as it was in the in the sort of mid-60s, sort of when they were beginning to sort of bring in again the bluesy rhythm and blues and bluesy stuff. And so then bringing in stuff from other parts of the world, and the long solos, there lots and lots of jamming, which could go anywhere, and jazz, and the jazz influences of people like John McLaughlin and so on. Excuse me, I think I've got some water here. Excuse me, are you going to cut out my coughing and drinking water? Or don't you have the expertise? I can't do things like that.
I absolutely can't, but we might have some.
No, never mind. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I can cough. It's just a tickle.
Yeah.
It's not COVID, definitely. And I keep putting my hand up there because I keep getting a prompt from AOL to say I've got a messenger. I should turn off my alerts on my phone. Never mind. These are the trials of today's technology. You know, things saying, why this? Listen to this. This has just come in. That's just come in. You know.
My daughter's Freya. She wants me to ask you, was it difficult being female in the rock and roll world back in the beginning?
Everybody feels that it should have been difficult, but and I've read, you know, people like Annie Haslam's account of how it was for her, and certainly for her it was more of a kind of a male-female divide and things, but I never found it that way. But I think because I was just so much of a lone traveler, you know, I've been going out playing folk clubs on my own and relating to people. And at college I had, you know, lots of friends and lovers, and it was, you know, it was the time of free love, and also the feeling was that there was, because this whole thing, the whole kind of the mystification of romance, and, you know, going back to lords and ladies and kings and queens and velvets and satins, etc., you know, that you're, so if somebody was in a relationship, it'd be like my lady and my, I don't know, my man. It wasn't my knight, but anyways, but what it was, you know, there was all that kind of courtly respect, theoretically, in love songs and so on. And so I just appreciated the guys as people. They're more like brothers, and having come from Hair, where we had to break through lots of convention and swear and be nude on stage and climb all over each other and enjoy each other, sort of not be afraid to do anything on stage, you know. So I just come out of 2.5 years of that, and also been in the kind of freewheeling London of Hell's Angels and Pink Fairies and Hawkwind and things, who were my sort of big brothers too. Right. So you know, I just think and I've got this image of coming into town. I used to be so proud of being with my gang of fearless men. You know, I'd feel like a, you know, the bandit queen, you know, coming into some strange little country town, and English country town, or stopping at a motorway cafe, and, you know, there's all of my kind of long-haired people. And so, you know, I just didn't see, for some reason, I don't know whether it's because I thought of people as people, and if I fancied somebody, if they fancied me, then whatever, and if I didn't fancy them, then it didn't happen. And, you know, there was no kind of imposition on me. Yeah. And there was only one time when I nearly got after Curved Air, when I nearly got to deal with Hansa Records, but they wanted me to drop my band and sing "Stuck in the Middle with You." So I said, well, no way, I'm not leaving my band. You know, this was sort of the band that I had in between after Curved Air, and you know, so that was the only time that a record company had tried to encroach on our creativity, you know,
Yes.
or my creativity. You know, I was left, we were left completely alone to do our own thing. The guys were happy with my works. They didn't particularly want my own compositions until I put Melinda on Phantasmagoria, because they didn't want to be thought of as a folk band, because they knew that I'd come from a folk background originally before Hair.
Right.
So you know, but that was fine. I mean, that was the deal. I joined to develop their songs with them.
Even bands like Led Zeppelin had some folk roots, didn't they?
Yeah, yes, I think so. And I notice now when people talk about Curved Air, they do sort of put the folky tag in there, you know, sort of folk rock kind of.
Classical. You get all the words associated, don't you?
Yeah, well, definitely was classical came into it, but it was like everything, like most things in that era, the sort of progressive rock. I've always thought of it as progressive rock. I can't remember when it changed from prog to progressive rock. I think it's always been that for me.
Right.
Maybe Yes, not so much, because they weren't quite so rocky, were they?
I'm just thinking of the word. People were calling it, and I was thinking, what the hell is this progressive rock you're all talking about? So it was, you know, waking up to it was slow for me, I guess. I never liked the word either, so I guess I just dismissed or resisted.
What, rock or progressive?
Progressive. Oh, prog, really. Tell
Prog.
me,
Yeah, prog is a bit ugly.
where did you go to college?
I went to a drama college in Hampstead called the New College of Speech and Drama, because it offered a drama course, but at the end of it you were supposed to get a teaching qualification, which my dad, since I'd had a sort of a checkered teenageness, you know, he wanted me to have something to fall back on, even though I was singing all over the place at a drop of a hat in cafes and clubs and squat parties and things. You know, there wasn't any sort of, I know, yeah, and I had management and stuff, but no, but he just didn't see, thought that since I wanted to do drama, fine, but to have a degree at the end of it would be even better. But as it was, I only lasted a year at that time, because I was too busy burning the candle at both ends and staying out and playing music everywhere and hanging out with my handsome rogues, you know, my sort of all the interesting people in London,
Right.
you know, and you know, just following wherever they took me. All the people who wrote for International Times, and you know, they were giving me my education, and it was, but strange enough, when I later on, when I was raising my Stuart and my little kids, when we split up, I got a job at Middlesex University, and the New College of Speech and Drama had merged with Middlesex University. So when I went back there, it was almost like, you know, I went back. I took a master's degree there,
Right.
and then I ended up teaching there. And for our sort of live assessments of the masters, we actually went back to the theatre at the college where I did my 1 year, and we did our performances there. So it was one of many synchronicities in my life, which I love.
Did you like teaching? I guess you said you did, yeah.
Well, I mean, I had been teaching myself, just people. I also studied sound healing with, I think it's Chris James was his name, big Australian guy at Gaunt's house. So I did a course in sound healing. So I was interested in sort of the role of sound and the formation of overtones and things like that.
Does that influence when you're writing? Does that come into your writing?
No, but when I'm teaching, it does, because I read lots of books on the voice, and I'll have another sip of water. I was doing vigorous talking. You're the first person I've spoken to today, apart from the cat. This is such the thing about lockdown.
My voice is really croaky in the morning, so I'm glad this is in the afternoon.
Yeah, well, this for me, because it's just the first talking that I've done. It's obviously my voice needs a good cough to clear it out, but it'll be all right. I'll carry on. I'll wait until it settles down. So but where was I?
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I'm imagining that if you're writing songs, you're writing down all your ideas. But do you write music as well, or just lyrics?
Yeah, I've written songs since I was, when I first started playing in folk clubs. I wrote a few songs of my own. I learned all the songs that I liked from the singer-songwritery, there's a word that just went through my mind for it. The whatever, the collection of singer-songwritery songs off of albums and things.
Yeah.
And so I was singing Buffy Sainte-Marie songs and incredible band songs and Bob Dylan songs and so on. And so I began to write my own songs, and I've actually got my mother made me write them down and put them in an envelope and post them to myself. So she kept them for sort of I sort of wrote the melody line out and the words of those sort of baby songs, and I recorded some of them. I don't know what happens to recordings when I was with Roy Guest's management, but they were very, very, very sort of hippie-ish and kind of, I don't know. I'm not that. Just recently, occasionally I sort of sung them through, and I thought, well, it's actually not too bad, because I sang them on TV, because I've got some TV. Something's Coming I did on TV, which was a program at Advent. That was the reason for the title, and I sang a couple of my own songs on that, so it was on the good enough for the TV, I guess. But yeah, they're yet to be recorded. Just very simple, like about sort of relationships and things. I always like to base my songs on real experiences, things that are real. I know some people can imagine things. I mean, even though a lot of my songs are kind of surreal, like about the elves dancing around in the mercury filled cosmos somewhere. Even that has a resonance of truth to me.
Yes.
It means it has meaning, even if I couldn't put it into words necessarily. So therefore, it has meaning for other people.
The first time I ever heard Curved Air, it happened today. Was
Yeah.
it before you were writing for them?
It happened today was Francis's line, and then the rest of it was mine.
Really?
And I remember having played with those when I was sitting in college, having played with those, you know, you're only what you think you might be. I'm only what you think I am, and all this playing with words, turning things backwards and forwards about time. Time is telling. Time will tell in time. You know, that was in my college notebook.
Right.
You know, so I imported the little plays on words.
That song made a very big impression on me. I thought it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that Darren and Francis was a really good combination. They made some magical stuff.
You mentioned a word. You were struggling for word, and you asked me to help out about blending from one thing to another, and my mind went blank. But it just came to me. The word you might have been looking for was segue.
No, that's good, because what I'm doing is I'm putting something on top of something else.
Okay.
So that they blend together. So it's, I suppose, a kind of blending, I guess.
Yes.
Blending would do, but it isn't sort of as interesting sounding a word as something like osmosis. Osmosis is what's osmosis?
I always thought of it from my school biology lessons.
Yes, it's a tree eating the sap, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Turning the sap into tree.
I hate that these things have slipped my grasp right now. I feel like an hour ago I'd have known everything, and I've had all the connections working. Right now my brain is going, where are my slippers? I'm half asleep.
Is that my fault?
No,
My scrambled.
no. It's what can I say?
It's one of those things that happens. I'm always kind of standing in the middle of the room, not looking left, not looking right, to quote a song, not my song, but you know, wondering what I'm doing there and what I came in for. You know, that's
Yes.
that
Oh,
sort
God,
of thing.
Yes. Yes, I've done that. You know, I know it's a good day if I go down to get myself a cup of tea, and it only takes 3 trips.
Yeah, and searching for words. You know, just when you come up to the point when you need to say it, it disappears.
Yes.
And then it appears about 3 hours later.
Yes. No use. Yeah.
If you're lucky.
I find, you know, riposte to people who are rude. That happens too. You know, I really envy people who can come back straight away, even if you don't want to actually do it. But the fact that it comes back 2 or 3 hours later, I think, what's the use of that?
Yeah.
Mind you, that isn't really new for me. I was always this absent-minded. You know, it's yeah, I can remember being at college and going down to the canteen, and it wasn't lunchtime or anything, and walking into an empty place, thinking, what am I doing here? Oh, I was going to the library. You know, it was.
Yeah. I think it's distraction, isn't it? Your mind is full of something else, so it can't possibly concentrate on the mechanics of getting you from one place to another as well, because you're lost in thought, literally.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why you can't think of things as well. But you know, but this losing words thing is most really annoying, and names and things like that. Roger, yes.
So I guess for me, you've kind of answered one question, which is, where do ideas come from and how do you get them into the world? It's you have an idea and you write and write and write until you've hammered it into shape. Is that unfair? Or?
Sometimes, yeah, but that's if I have to write to somebody else's tune, you
Right.
know, I'll sing certain words over the tune until it feels right. You know, I might put them all together sort of separately, but I mean it's yeah. I mean there's that's once I had to find a new lyric for a song that Daryl called "Young Mother in Style," which was about Jackie and Onassis. Only I didn't like it. It didn't suit me just to sing, so I said, "Well, I'll write some other words." So I remember because we had the tune already, and I remember sitting and just waiting until something moved me, until I felt something which ended up being "Why Must I?" Nothing means anything now, you know. Can't believe in something unreal. Don't interfere with my mind. Try to be kind. And that all came, you know, that all comes when the line, the whole things do come out, you know, in chunks, you know, and you think, well, you know, that means, you know, it means a lot, but it's very subconscious. It's that's not consciously crafted. It appears.
So when you've done something like that, and I get the sense that it felt really right for you, I imagine if it
Yeah.
felt really right for you, it must have worked.
Yes, oh yes, no, it did, because I was
Already.
as I was singing it, it just those words fitted the tune perfectly,
Yeah.
and you know, so I was able to go out on stage or yeah, this was the second album, so things went onto stage pretty quickly, and it meant something to me. It's important. It's important that things mean something to me, even if I'm sort of like Hide and Seek was about a you know waking up in the morning and everybody's no, I was playing hide and seek, obviously playing because of the title of the song, and I go and hide, and then I come back out, and everybody's the town is completely empty. There's nobody else around.
Mm.
You know, so that's a sort of a, a vision of a sort of, you know, it's an idea of a bit something that's shocking that could happen, but it was,
And has this
you
year,
know.
hasn't it?
Oh yeah, well yes, that's doors all closed. Yes, this year it has doors all closed and window curtains drawn. All the people have gone. You know, streets deserted. I'm here alone, frightened of the unknown. Yeah, okay. It was a premonition of the pandemic. That yeah.
I remember walking to get some shopping, and it's about, from my place to the shops, it's about 2 miles. And I saw a couple of people, but that's all. And that was
Yeah.
unimaginable.
Yes, that whole thing was quite extraordinary. It was like my song had envisaged.
Yeah.
You know, but well, everything that we're going through is extraordinary, and I actually like being at home. You know, because it's good, because I have to be creative, and it's good to be able to sort through things and think. You know, and I've got a kind of regime, and I've got the cat, and you know, I don't. For the first few months, I didn't go out at all, and then I did a couple of little plays with my theatre group. So for 2 weeks, I went out on the train and everything, did it, and went to the pub afterwards and
Right.
things. Right, that was in September, and there was, I think things have been eased a bit there. Obviously, we could go to the pub, so and we could get together in socially distanced ways, and so we put on some socially distanced plays. But now I'm back to not. And I just don't even want to go out, even to take the rubbish out. You know, to take the rubbish from my back door up to the gate, to the other side of the gate. You know, something takes a great effort of will for me to actually do that. It's not because I'm afraid of anything.
No.
It's just because I'm really comfortable in my own thoughts and world. You
Yeah,
know, in my
me too.
routine.
I like it.
I like it too, and I think lots of people do enjoy it. You know,
Yeah.
obviously for young people, they you know, they want to party and drink and that sort of
Right.
thing, and gather, because that's what young people always have done. But there are, in fact, I wrote a song on North Star. I wrote a song about virtual communication, virtual love making. It was called Images and Signs, or making love with, you know, images and signs, and meaning sort of on screens, and, you know, communicating through technology, with one lover kind of sort of out in space somewhere, and the other lover kind of it's a boy out in space and the girl on the line, you know, so wherever just the line. It was like a sort of telephone line, or whatever, the cable.
Do you still live in
But-
Clapham?
No, I live in Hackney now.
Right. Okay. But
I've lived in-
you're not in the country though.
No, not in the country. No, I don't like being in the country. You've seen one tree, you've seen them all. I mean, I love trees, but you know, it's sort of going out. I mean, I know living in town a lot, and then I used to go out and stay with a friend who lived in the middle of a forest, and I got so drunk on the air. You know, you do when you've been in town and you just go out and you spend a lot of time outside.
Yeah.
The air really gets to you, makes you sort of drunk and sleepy, and you know, just the all these endless fields, and you know, I just can't wait to be back to the city. You know, I'm a city bird. It's like the pulse, the throb of life is in the city.
Right.
You know, of I know people go out to the country to create and things, but that's because they need to immerse themselves in themselves, not in the fields and the trees necessarily. But and then when I left, because Stuart and I had like 10 years of living in this country house just outside High Wycombe, and it was absolutely beautiful. But I really wanted to be back in town. Everything I wanted to do was in town. Stuart was okay because he had his studio set up, and so he could be creative all the time. And I did write songs when I was there, which then I took out on the road with my acid folk band. But when I came back to London, I was just, first thing was I couldn't get in I couldn't work out how to get on into the station with my ticket. Somebody had to show me how to put the ticket in the thing so the door opened. And then, you know, just looking at the tube trains, my heart was full of affection looking at these scrubby little trains running along. They still had graffiti on them at that point when in the early 90s. I seem to remember we were recording in the studio, which was just at the most polluted place in London, just off the Euston Road. And you know, the traffic, the sound of the traffic sounded literally like an orchestra to me. You know, I thought, this is wonderful. You know, this is the city. You know, it was just, it was amazing. And now I've got trains near me where I am, and I love that too. The rumble of the train coming past.
Me too. I love trains, but I like steam trains, so it's a kind of a nerdy thing. But I really like steam trains. The nearest ones of those are 5 or 6 miles, but just outside my window is the main line from Lewes to London. Once the Flying Scotsman did one of those trips around England and went by, so I was pretty impressed.
You have steam trains going past your window?
No, I wish.
No, ordinary trains, regular trains.
It has happened, but it doesn't happen in a regular. It could.
Yeah.
The Bluebell Railway is talking about extending down to Lewes, so that would be pretty cool if they get that done anytime soon. Yeah. I've made you do all the work in this interview.
I do. I tend to take off, you know, my thoughts tumble out.
Well, it's been brilliant. I'm going to say, if we finish now, it can go on all kinds of platforms, because if it goes over an hour, it's slightly more limited, but not that much. How are you feeling?
How am I feeling?
Yeah, about talking. You said your voice, when you
No,
coughed.
I'm fine. I'm fine. It was just that I was, my voice was sounding a bit rough, but it was just warming up really.
Yeah.
My voice is fine. If we want to stop there, we can stop there.
No, I had a couple
It's been
more
great.
obvious questions. If you going, if I don't imagine you can plan next year at all. But
No, not really. We did move 19. There we go. Do you ever do that? They said come out with 19 rather than 20.
too often to own up to.
No, we moved 2020 into 2021. The shows, but it doesn't look like, because we had a tour of Brazil, and so that was obviously cancelled. And I don't know if Brazil will be any healthier to visit
Right.
early next year either. And with the cruise, we were supposed to be doing the cruise, and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And some festivals, so it depends whether people are going to put on gigs next year. They'll be so socially distanced that they won't be able to make any to make it work. But we are going to do one of these Patreon platform things, so which has been successful for a lot of people.
Right.
Patreon.
No.
It's a kind of crowdfunding thing.
Yeah.
Where your supporters support you. They volunteer to pay £1 a month, £10 a month, £5,000 a month, or whatever, and in return for that they have they have certain privileges, probably like special tickets for shows and things like that. But I know people who've done really, really well from that. There's an artist called Amanda Palmer, who's a bit of a kind of a theatrical, a touring sort of theatrical cabaret type diva, and she's sort of cross between all that and circus, and she's built herself a good living. Her fans pay for, she managed to pay for her rent and the people who work for her, and managed to keep everything moving so she can continue to be creative, and she keeps them all involved in all the creativity that she's doing. She doesn't sit around and do nothing. She's always doing that and keeping the fans involved. And so I need to find my way into that, because the good thing about it is it doesn't have an end goal like Kickstarter or something like that.
No,
It's
an
ongoing project with, and there was one of the prog bands who are still doing that, who were the first people to do that. Can you remember who it was?
I'd not heard of it until just now.
Huh? No. Well, they didn't do Patreon, but they did the thing about crowdfunding with getting their fans to donate towards the recording of an album, and
Right.
they've been doing that ever since. So now that apparently they could retire and go, on the money that the fans are still paying them, But it was, I can't remember the name of them now. But but they are one of the longest running. Well, no, actually not the longest running, because that would be like the Soft Machine and Gentle Giant and all these people, but more recent ones. I think there's a D comes into their name, but then now that's no indication that that's correct at all. But a D comes to me, but I don't think that's what it is. It's
Got to get some discipline about these random thoughts.
No, but they are they're a well-known band. I mean, I ran into them at the last Prog Awards. They were there. But whose name escapes me. But it works. It does work very well. So, but I think you just have to involve the fans in a way that makes them feel that it's worth their while. You know.
I like that idea about getting that level of engagement. I'm hoping that you'll play Trading Boundaries again, because that's just around the corner from me.
It was on the 2020 list.
Good.
So it should come back in 2020 whenever. The cruise is now 2022, isn't it? So.
Well, those I love them, by the way, but they're always a little bit of a health hazard at the best of times. I remember Fran and I came off one of the cruises with something that was diagnosed as viral pneumonia, and we were ill for about 6 weeks. And a lot of people were ill on that cruise. I learned the lesson, because it was a very early one, not to ever use the air conditioning. So always have the balcony doors open and air conditioning.
Yeah. It was Legionnaire's disease, you said it was. I remember when I spoke to you at Trading Boundaries, you said it was Legionnaire's disease.
No, well, that's what my doctor speculated, but that's identifiable. You know, you can actually say, yes, it is, no, it isn't. They never actually genuinely identified what we had and just put it down to a generic description of viral pneumonia. But it wasn't very funny.
It was like COVID, wasn't it?
Sorry?
It was like COVID.
I guess it was, yeah. It's certainly some of the symptoms, because we would often get up in the morning, feel fine, and I think, I'll just sit down for 2 minutes. And 3 hours later, I was trying to wake up with a lorry parked on me, if you know what I mean. That real.
Yeah, that's what they say. There's elephants sitting on your chest.
Yes.
That's called COVID.
Yes. Well, that's what it was.
COVID's your fault then.
Well, me and about half the people on the cruise, yeah.
Yeah, we brought it all over the world, because we actually didn't go all over the world, but people from all over the world do come on the cruise, don't they? So, but that was quite a long time ago, that one, wasn't it? Because it was about 6-7 years ago.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And it's not always the same ship, so there's no way you take precautions. You just keep your fingers crossed, I guess. All the other times have been better than fine. They've been wonderful.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the cruise that we did. I'd always wanted to do a cruise, and it was just so lovely for that to happen. And it'd be so nice to do another one. I didn't want to get off. It's like not wanting to go out. When everybody went off to explore an island, I had not the slightest bit of interest in exploring an island. I wanted to just stay in my cabin, and I had a balcony too, which was good, But so no, I didn't. I'm not a good tourist.
You only played twice, didn't you, on each cruise? Is that right?
I think it was twice. Yes, once on the deck and once in the theatre.
Yeah.
And a sort of a chat session in the middle of the boat.
Did you get a chance to look around and meet everybody or the other bands?
I'm not big on doing that either. I mean, I knew Dave Kersner, because there was and Fernando Perdomas. He got in touch with me before I went on the cruise, saying he was going to be on the cruise, and so we've become really good friends, and he introduced me to Dave Kersner, who is they're now working with through Martin, I think. I mean, they they're becoming closer to. I did a track. I recorded a track, a vocal on a track for Dave Kersner recently. But you know, you don't because as soon as you leave your cabin, there are people saying, making conversation with you.
Yeah.
You know, when you're on your way to the restaurant. You know, so you know, that's sort of enough, really. I mean, you don't seem to run into many other bands just, you know, on your way to the restaurant. Maybe, but it's just there are just people, lots of people, and you know, saying, "Oh, hello, you know, I'm so pleased to see you," and reminding me about you know, places I played and records they've heard and stuff. But it's lovely. I mean, that's lovely too. But it just, so I saw Fernando, and when we were doing our meet and greet, there was a guy from another band who was sitting on the edge of the stage, very drunk. It was just something to do with the band's name was a very dark name. But so, you know, so we saw him. But anyway, I'm rambling on past our hour, no doubt.
Well, we are, but yes, that's fine. We might edit some versions of it at that point when I mentioned the time, but we can keep the full thing. So that's fine too. Sonja, thank you so much for joining me. And I'm sorry I gave you the hard work of today, but it was been brilliant.
No. It's not hard work. It's like a river. You've got to stop, you know.
Well, I was basically sitting here listening to you. So, and it was lovely. And I hope we meet again on the cruise or Trading Boundaries or somewhere soon. Although
Yes,
I doubt it will be that soon.
No, it has been really nice to talk to you. Really, it's good. I mean, I've done a few interviews recently, and they've all been very, very different. There's one young lad took me all through my you know, just he said he wanted to know all about what it was like in the sort of 60s. Did everybody take, you know, did everybody take drugs, you know, then and whatever? And I said, well, yes, it was like food and drink, you know, in our society, in our kind of community of young people, you know, it was just there.
Yes, but you were actually more in the heart of it than most.
I was.
Yes. I mean, you know, all the symbols of the 60s counterculture, you were there, weren't you?
Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah. But it felt very real. You know, there were miracles happening daily,
Yeah.
and synchronicities, and it was a new reality. It was a different reality. This sort of world of all possibilities.
I tried to explain my reaction to the time, saying there was like two futures roaring down at us, and they were very different. One was technological and amazing. You know, Concorde was being developed. People were about to walk on the moon. The technological future was incredible. But there was a kind of a magical parallel, the age of Aquarius, and that future was roaring down the pike at the same time. And they didn't seem to really come together ever, but they were there. It just seemed everything.
Well, I think they did it with concerts. You know, all the technology that built all those big noisy amplifiers and managed to amplify the bands for hundreds and thousands of people at festivals and things. That's all part of the technological evolution of things.
Yes.
And and synthesizers. I mean, that's very much an integral part of bands and things, where it has much to do with, you know, and given that bands at that time would have a take on spiritual things and drugs and you know, would have dabbled mostly, you know, in in everything, like most people that I knew did. I mean, it's just in my universe, it was either the people who went to Middle Earth and were partying in squats and who I met in their homes and smoked with, and there was that universe, and there was the straight people, like the students who were taking geography degrees and things like that. There's nothing wrong with geography degrees, but they didn't tend to let their hair down
Or grow.
or grow. Yeah.
I thought it was an amazing time.
Yeah, it was really, really, I mean, all of us who were in this communal experience, and there were casualties, definitely, and I was really, really lucky not to be a casualty, because I could easily have been. I took take a trip with somebody who didn't come back from it, but I did. It was the same acid, and you yes, it was dangerous, but it felt. I mean, for part of my master's degree, I wrote about. I was writing it sort of about hair, because we were studying, part of the degree was postmodernism, so I was writing about hair as a postmodern production, and about how that time it just seemed to be like the next frontier was to explore was your brain, to explore the experiences that these substances could give you. I mean, obviously, all the different psychedelics and things too. I mean, and in the same way, like the barbiturates and opioids and speed. I mean, they all had their effect to be explored. To see, well, what does this do? Oh, it makes me feel like this. And some got addicted, and some just partied.
We had, for a brief while, and I can't remember what year, but it would have been probably 68. We had Sid Barrett had a room in our apartment for a while. So the sort of, yes, he was one who didn't
Yeah, he didn't make it.
No.
Yeah. But then I think they do say that it's the ones who are going to go, who have that kind of loose connection anyway, that would have a breakdown of some kind at that point. And I mean, one of my sons had a breakdown in his early 20s, and that's that could have been blamed on sort of California weed, but it is something that tends to happen to young people. They have their first breakdown in their early 20s, and then it keeps coming. Then their mental health is difficult to keep under control, from that point onwards. But that's a phenomenon which happens whether you take drugs or not. So the two things could just coincide: a very, very talented person and the drugs and the breakdown.
It was, from perspective of now, it was also right on the edge of an end of a very dark era, wasn't it? Because I mean, I went to art school in 1961, and
Right.
I think just 15 years ago was the Second World War, and England had barely recovered.
And you had the missile crisis in the middle of the 60s, or
yes,
which everybody was frightened.
My dad was army, so we were traveling all over the place. But I do remember then that the prospect of being wiped out by a nuclear war was kind of real. People realized it was a possibility. It was something you live with and got used to, I guess.
Yeah.
But by 1968, I guess we'd moved on from that. It was still a possibility, but much less so.
Well, we had the anti-war marches, and that was you know, these activists was happening then, which I don't think was happening in the early 60s, or was it?
It may have been, but I certainly didn't come across it till I was in London. So that would have been 65 onwards.
Yeah.
But an amazing time, nevertheless. An amazing time. And London really was genuinely an amazing place to be, although those amazing parts of it were small. It wasn't everywhere.
Yeah. Yes, they were. And I something occurred to me that when the hippie thing, when the San Francisco thing went, you know, began to burn out, with Haight-Ashbury and everything, you know, things, it would be coming run with heroin. That was sort of as because Mick Farron and the Deviants and you know, all these other people, they were already embracing the New York energy, the sort of the New York Dolls and things like that, which was kind of pre-punk, and this was in 1967, 1968. And so I think that then the energy then went to New York, and New York became the center of where the humanities mindset was at. You know, the Andy Warhol, and there was all these sort of New York poets and artists and bands, and those and they were the kind of inspiration for the punk movement in England anyway. I know that was like sort of, you know, Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers and the New York Dolls and all these people. So that was the next big event, you know, with its attendant sort of speed and cocaine and drugs. You know, it had a different vibe to it, but but that was exciting too. The whole punk thing.
It was interesting, for sure. Yes.
Stuart and I loved it. We used to go down to the Roxy Club, and because Curvedere was taking a holiday then, and the police hadn't started, so we just watched it all build up from, you know, sort of a handful of people in the room with these little bands playing these mini sets that were incredibly fast, and talking to people, and, you know, so we felt part of it.
It was a fantastically energetic thing, but in the end, it was interesting because people used to ask me what happened to bands like Yes after punk, and the truth is, they became bigger than ever. Punk didn't dent their popularity. I mean, Yes in the 80s was selling 10 million albums, and Aisha the same. You know, it was not a discernible difference. But in the music press, it completely, completely dominated, didn't it?
Yeah.
I remember though, when the music press was kind of odd, it used to be very focused on the unions and things like that, music union.
Oh, I don't remember that. I mean, I only looked at them when we were in it, you know. So
right.
When we done an interview or something.
Yes.
Maybe I think I did look at them. I read them a bit more. I've caught up on a few things, bands which I didn't know about, sort of in the 80s, when I wasn't actually on the road in the sort of early 80s and things. So I tried to find out what was, you know, when there were bands like The Cure and the Smiths and so I got a vibe of what they were all about. Talking Heads.
Yeah.
All good stuff.
Yes, definitely. For me, the 80s were me discovering people like Ryuichi Sakamoto and
Mm.
looking at that end of the music. Yes, it was. But by then I felt more like an observer than part of it.
Yeah. Well, I was. I mean, I was having babies in my country house. You know.
Well, that sounds like a good place to be to me.
Or you know, but also traveling around with the most famous rock band at that time in the world. You know, or occasionally the wives would get to go out and take in a few countries.
Yeah.
And that was really that was another wonderful thing in my life. You know, just watching that build up. You know, from two men and a dog in a pub and then a little club with people thinking, oh, this isn't punk, what's this, you know, and they come back from America and you got the Lyceum singing along to their songs, you know, it's and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, you know.
Yes.
And just and all the groupies climbing all over each other to get into wherever they were and all that kind of thing, you know. So it's that was and Stuart and I having holiday in Bali and India and, you know, and just all these lovely things that come with having a bit of money.
Well, yes. It's well, they were amazing, weren't they? It was an amazing band.
Yeah, they were, and it was just the combination of all of them. It really was the combination of all of them. And people still think it. People nowadays think it was Sting's band, but it was Stuart's band. You know, Stuart thought of the name. Stuart wrote the first few songs, got the first little record deal, and then his brothers took them to America, and Roxanne became a hit because they were playing in an American club with two men and a dog, and one of those men was a DJ, a very influential DJ, who then played Roxanne and played it to death, and that became a hit in America.
Yes.
You know, one of those things of fate doing its thing. Yeah.
Which it needs to do. We all need that. Yes. It was, I don't know, for me, watching it, I just love the sound of that. But it was an incredibly powerful sound too.
Oh, yeah.
I remember there was a prog program done by the BBC, and there was an interview with various bands like, I don't know, Robert Fripp and Yes, and I particularly remember Carl Palmer. And they were all saying prog had no groupies. No prog band had groupies. So that must have been...
Not officially. I mean, there were girl fans who would...
Yes, but not in the same way.
Not in the same way, not in a screaming way.
Yes. Was that a problem for you?
What, the girls?
Yeah.
Or groupies, or what? Or lack of them? What do you mean, with the police or with Curved Air or...
Well, I imagine you must have had a huge number of male fans too.
Yeah, when Backstreet Love was a hit, when we came on stage, the boys all screamed because the audience were mainly boys.
Well, that seems only fair.
That was incredible, you know. It just because I didn't think that they had that testosterone created that kind of reaction, you know. Because with girls they all immediately scream when they get excited, but boys don't tend to scream when they get excited. But
that must have been an interesting experience. That reaction.
Yes, yeah, it was. Yeah, well, it was. You know, but then we went on and we played. That was just sort of like when we came on, is it just, and I don't know whether when we played back Street Love, I can't remember. I just remember it being the reaction when we came on. It was that was the reaction. But groupies, there'd always be girls who would want to get to meet the band, and the guys would be trying to keep themselves faithful to their woman at home, and trying, not to be tempted, really, but we, one knows that. So when the police went off and did their thing, we knew that, I knew what the reality was, and so we kind of had there was an unspoken. We didn't have a sort of major discussion, but it was just kind of, I know what it's like for guys on the road, so it was kind of okay, I guess. But it was when he I did get upset when he slept with people in other bands.
Right.
When there was a person. But that was just but it was not a. It was just. I think it's because it was another bandmate as opposed to, a girl passing through.
I didn't expect this conversation to go there, but I hope I haven't made it awkward for you.
Probably, but never mind. No, I did it. I did, didn't I? Or who brought it up? We can cut it out.
Okay.
If you want to.
But that's up to you. I often thought that the power of the music in the 60s, the color, the power of it, was so juxtaposed to the poverty and the grayness of what went before.
Yeah.
It was enhanced dramatically by that contrast. That poor bleakness of England.
Yes, but it became, in the swinging 60s, it became possible for young people to have fun on a, on an every with the money from an everyday accessible job, working in a shop or, doing. You could earn enough to rent a flat and go out for the night, have drinks and things. So it was however they managed it. I mean, however the economics worked out to be that way. I mean, I wish it would go back that way again. I'm a great believer in the basic income, the universal basic income, isn't it? That's the thing where everybody.
And I can't remember his name, but the Dutch author who wrote a book where he focused on that in the first half.
Yeah.
It sounded like a brilliant idea to me.
Well, I think this was the world is going to become more and more automated, with the advent of technology and what is beginning. This was another thing that came up in conversation the other day, is that that the new movement, since punk and whatever it was, there was house music and all those, the Convoy and the New Age Travelers and things like that. But now we've got Silicon Valley, and we've got the kind of the culture of ideas, of innovation, of the in Silicon Valley. They're trying to make drugs that will, actually really enhance us properly, and as well as gadgets that self-driving everything's and all the things of the future that we imagined would be there. All those things are coming out of Silicon Valley, or the equivalent place in China, where the half of Silicon Valley are are as well. So that is kind of like the new evolution, the new. This is a sort of anyone could be an entrepreneur if they have the right idea. It's like anybody can have an idea and put it on the internet, and or anybody can write a song and it can catch on the internet. You don't need to have managements and promotion people and whatever unless they really know how to do all that sort of thing. All these influencers and people who are making lots of money out of because they know how to work themselves as a product on the internet, all these different ways. I mean, this is the way things are going today. And I think it's interesting, the way China is going is that, it's marching into Tibet, or it's in Tibet, saying you can't have temples, you can't have religion, it's a waste of time, everybody should be buying cars, whereas well, I don't know. I mean, I had the feeling that when you walk around when we go to somewhere out in, say, in England, or go to a little town, and the village hall will all have mindfulness classes, and there's that is, the ethos of the 60s is so mainstream now. Yoga and mindfulness and microbiotic food, and that was all part of I became vegetarian for 9 years during that. I mean, I still am half and half, but it's it's interesting that China hasn't found its spirituality yet. Hopefully it will get back to the days of Confucius.
Yes, Tao more, I think. I think it needs to get back to the days of, or the thinking.
Or Tao,
Yeah.
the Tao,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, whatever. But it's interesting, though, that it's only just discovered capitalism, and it just thinks that the future is more consumerism, whereas we're all getting minimal in the West.
Yes, yes. I imagine
Too much stuff.
Well, yes, for sure.
Yes, and we shouldn't be a throwaway society anymore. That was big in the 60s.
But you never hear that phrase now, do you? You did back then, but disposable furniture. I mean, give me a break. Where's the sense in that? But
yeah,
it was an idea that got a lot of color magazine coverage and things like that. So I guess it's better, more sane now. Anyway, listen, Sonja, I'm going to have to let you escape.
well, but we've done the future. You wanted to do the future, so we've done the future. Well, we've done today anyway.
We've mentioned it, yes. Maybe we should do that again. If you fancy.
Yeah, well, whenever.
Yeah.
Yeah, when? Another time, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've enjoyed just exploring all these themes that are in my head.
Well, definitely, let's do it again then.
I've got to turn them into songs.
Not everything, but yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. It's been brilliant having you along.
All right, thank you, Roger. You've been lovely to talk to. Nice and welcoming and easy. I like having conversations with where I flow anyway, where it flows. Well, we both flow, yes. So.
Well, lovely talking to you. Thank you very, very much. And I'll send this to you in about half an hour, I guess it'll take to compress, and then I'll email it.
Okay, and so my fringe looks very rat's taily because of the stuff I squirted on it, but never mind.
The fringe looks perfect.
They'll probably think it
looks perfect.
Oh,
You're
okay.
right. It's ideal.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Love,
Bye-bye.
love, peace. Stay well.
You too.
Who's gonna hang up?
I am.